Grab your beverages and turn up your interweb. Solving the world's problems 12 ounces at a time. It's Dudes and Beer.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to episode 267 of the Dudes and Beer podcast. I am Chris Jordan, your host. Our guest tonight, I cannot wait. I've been waiting to have him on. Ram Denison is on to talk about the amazing documentary Money Machine, to discuss everything that has happened since the closing of the case there in Vegas with the Route 91 shooting, the Mandalay Bay Massacre. We, of course, talk with our good friend, investigative reporter Mike Turber from 5x5 News about that regularly. But Ram has been making this documentary for quite a while, and I have been following it. I cannot wait for it to be released. Make sure to stop on by podcastcadet.com, everybody. That is where you can go to get podcasting services, everything from design to distribution, podcast help as far as branding, everything. Stop on by podcastcadet.com today. Use the code DUDES20. You will save 20% on your way out. I am so excited. I literally forgot our sponsor spot there. So check out this great audio right now, the actual audio from the trailer for Money Machine.
We're talking about the largest mass shooting in the history of the United States.
This is a crazed lunatic.
My brother just killed 58 people. My dad was on the 10 most wanted FBI list. We're not normal people. Steve gambled $1.6 million at the Mandalay in the week before he did this. He was really angry with the gaming industry.
There's been accusations that there's multiple shooters. That has been proven to be false.
You had politicians grandstanding on this Vegas Strong movement to get elected.
Vegas Strong.
I'm turning tragedy into opportunity.
It was an election year, and it was camera time for Lombardo and his friends.
I want to thank Sheriff Lombardo for your leadership.
I'm getting FaceTime every day.
Almost every press conference, you saw one figure, and that was Steve Sisolak, using this as a springboard for his political campaign.
He used the tragedy to get elected.
While the hashtag Vegas Strong campaign raised over $10 million, less than $20,000 were distributed to the victims in the first 5 months.
We want those records released.
If they came out and said what really happened, I think they're afraid of a period of time where people say it's not safe to go to Vegas.
Nothing happens in Las Vegas without the ring of a cash register.
MGM Resorts is suing the victims.
They are being sued for getting shot.
Shameful, disgusting, outrageous.
The newly released video shows Las Vegas police waiting in the hallway as Steven Paddock continues to murder people.
Oh my God.
Lives could have been saved if they would have taken action.
They were fibbing the whole time about being such big heroes. They were hiding in the hallway. I asked them, are you stupid or are you incompetent?
Please stop asking your question.
You hear officers directly saying, turn your cameras off.
I'm telling you right now, there's more than one shooter. Could be as many as 3.
We saw multiple muzzle flashes coming out that window.
There is no conspiracy.
Can't trust it! Yeah, can't trust it!
And there you have it, folks. The bombshell trailer for Money Machine. Welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show. Ram Denison, how have you been?
I'm good, man. Thanks for the kind words about the trailer bombshell. I like it.
Oh, dude, like just the trailer itself. When I was watching it, I've watched it smooth 10 times over the last couple days. Like every time I hop into my studio to get things ready, it's like, dude, it's just the footage of seeing the actual police in the hallway of Mandalay Bay outside of Paddock's room, listening to the gunshots. Just hanging out in the hallway, waiting for him to finish a clip. you know?
Yeah, and I mean, it really shows you how Joe Lombardo and LVMPD and all these grandstanding politicians in Las Vegas how aware they were that this was that they were on the world stage, and how they had to kind of like lie and bury and minimize anything that made them look bad and celebrate themselves as these grand heroes, when in truth they had officers trembling in the hallway like little cowards, and Joe Lombardo just kind of forgot to tell people about that or bring it, and actually even tried to, the media actually had to sue the LVMPD to get those records released.
Yeah.
And so just so you know, that's one of the reasons we've been a couple years making this movie, is because there's been all kinds of lawsuits and stuff to get them to release this footage, which we were eventually able to get, but Joe Lombardo, and I mean, they threw every roadblock they could in the way to prevent, because they knew that he knew he was a liar, and he knew that he was lying about his police department.
Yeah. And
so he wasn't, and what he did manage to do, though, was stall until after the election, until after he got reelected. So, he was already gotten reelected by the time it came out that he was a liar.
Yeah. And I mean, it was one of those, like I said, this was what really began the relationship between Dudes and Beer and you, Dudes and Beer, Mike Turber, all that kind of stuff. Thank you to our listener and friend and victim, Shannon Caffey, who was there that night, for introducing all of us and for being able to bring this information out, because it's one of those, like, I said it last time whenever I had my DB Cooper guest on, like, they wrapped up this case faster than they did DB Cooper's. It's like, what?
Well, and it's because there was so much money on the line. And anybody who ever thinks Vegas is about anything other than money should think again. And you saw that with the mayor. That big story, that big embarrassing story with Carolyn Goodman, the mayor, saying that we're willing to offer Vegas as a test group. So I just thought it showed what a nitwit this person was, because I mean I'm not, like the governor of Nevada, he at least understood the issue there. You got over 40 million tourists visiting Vegas a year. If you have 40 million tourists going around the town contracting COVID-19 and bringing it back to Omaha and Boston and Maine and all these places, you now have an epidemic that could end the U.S.
Exactly.
So it seemed like the governor of Nevada understood that, but cheerleader, simpleton Mayor Karen Goodman did not. But she knows how to shake her pom-poms and say that she wants...
Back to business.
Yeah, back to fit. Yeah, just money.
Yeah.
Screw, like, the spread of COVID. Screw, I think places should be open. And, and it was funny. It was like Anderson Cooper's like, well, are you, and he's like talking to, I don't know how they should do it. I don't own casinos. So she's just this, like, cheerleader generalist who thinks something should happen but isn't prepared to offer any solutions,
Yeah.
She's a joke and a fool. And, like, the whole world saw it. She's there to protect the cash.
Like you're saying, though, it's pretty much status quo. I mean, you can pretty much guarantee that to be status quo in just about any political system across the country, across the world, the fact that money's going to talk. But
I don't think but it shouts and
exactly. It screams and yells and shoots flares in the air.
I'm not minimizing money, but people not dying, that kind of matters too. And I've now know a couple people who've died from COVID, so to me this is nothing to mess around with. I know everybody has different points of view on that, but when you actually know somebody who's died from it, you kind of think that's probably not something to screw around with. And Vegas needs to be particularly careful because it is the tourist mecca of the U.S., It's one of the highest rates. They have as many visitors as any. I think New York and New York are number 1 and 2 in terms of, I think, visitors. So you got to be really careful. And, the governor understands that, but he's not.
And so many visitors from Asia and China that they literally decorate the places for Chinese New Year.
Yeah.
Like the Palazzo and stuff like that. Like I love going to my shows there every year because it's actually beautiful. Like the themes that they put up for Chinese New Year and everything else every year. It's gorgeous.
Vegas does spectacle better than anybody.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it is. I'll tell you what, the first time you walk around that Vegas Strip, the scale of it's just unbelievable.
Oh, and to see it now is just Atlantic spooky City, as hell.
Nothing competes with it.
No.
You're like the size of these 100-foot neon signs. It's just unbelievable.
It's one of those cities traveling the country as an AV technician that I take solace in and a big, deep breath of relief every time I walk into, because you know what? I could move there and find work in a heartbeat. Like everywhere has a convention center. It's crazy. But right now to see it in the state that it's in, where like I said, it's like a ghost town on the streets. Like you may as well see tumbleweeds going across the strip. It's freaky.
Yeah.
And let's start cracking the nut of Money Machine a little bit here, because like I said, I have been so excited about this. When I finally got to see the trailer, it was like, wow, even just the information in the trailer is one of those that was phenomenal. And I know Mike Turber released an hour-long interview with Eric Paddock. You guys have been literally the only two people to exclusively talk to Eric Paddock, the brother of
Mike
Steven.
Turber's the one who pulled that off. He's the one who got us Eric Paddock. And so I got to give credit where it's due. That was all him, and it was his relationship with Eric that allowed that to happen. So I can't really take any credit for that, but we thought it was important to talk to Eric because Eric's closer to the truth than anybody else in the world. Well, Eric knew what was really going on with his brother Steve. He knew Steve, and when you were talking about MGM, you're talking about Vegas, the Vegas Money Machine, they have no interest in the truth getting out there, because the truth is that MGM is partly responsible. I mean, their behavior is partly what drove him to do this, their greed. And that's the kind of thing that we unpeel in Money Machine, is that this idea that this was just some evil man who did this for no reason and no motive, and it's just a bunch of crap. But what it does do is it allows MGM to kind of like let themselves off the hook, because it's obviously not a good move to say that, your greed, basically drove this guy to do this.
Yeah.
And I'm not putting it all on MGM.
No.
But they are partly responsible for this, and they've managed to avoid that entirely. One of the things we unveil in the film by talking to former Mandalay Bay employees and Steven Paddock's brother is the circumstances leading up to this that MGM has tried to hide. Like the fact that he spent, you hear it in the trailer, he spent, over $1 million in the week before this happened. You won't hear MGM ever talk about it or acknowledge that. You won't hear them talk about, these comps that they offer gamblers and then pull them away when they actually get to the door. So there's a lot of things. What was really fascinating was when we started talking to Mandalay Bay employees, like former employees, who would kind of give you the lowdown on how they treat these high rollers and how they kind of deceive them. And that was fascinating to peel back. And you realize that, they're not without responsibility here, but they'd like to believe that they'd like the world to believe they are. And in every interview you saw them saying, like, the act of a madman, and not just distancing themselves. And it's like, well, let's talk about those things that you guys did that made him pissed off enough to go up and Eric Paddock, which we talk about in the movie, will tell you that, this was something that his brother likely did to leave them liable. Like he did it in such a manner to leave MGM liable.
Yeah, to kind of leave them with their nose open.
Yeah, I think he wanted to do the one thing that could hurt them. Like think about if you actually want to hurt someone as powerful as MGM. What do? Write a Yelp review? Maybe 2 people in the world will give a crap. It doesn't have an impact. But,
like the 10 bad Yelp reviews a day are going to be buried by the 10,000 a year that come through.
Yeah. I mean, they'd laugh at you.
Yeah.
If you wrote MGM a bad Yelp, I mean, they'd laugh at you. There's like 100 people walking through the door the next minute.
Yeah, I gave Steve Wynn a bad Yelp review. I feel real good about myself.
Yeah. the Steve Wynn thing was also interesting how that unraveled, but that's a separate subject.
Well, let's start getting into some of his habits, because I mean we've of course all heard about Steven Paddock by right now, or at least by this point, but it's been very obfuscated what his habits were, what his spending habits were, things like that at the casinos, and what, you know, the reasoning behind him spending that kind of money.
Well, that was the big revelation we got from Eric Paddock, and the film really digs in. Money Machine really digs into that. And I didn't actually know a lot of this before we talked to Eric. Eric explained to us that Steve wasn't necessarily doing this to make money. Steve was retired and he had plenty of money. You know, he was, you know, at various points in his life, he had over $1 million. And, but what Eric explained to us was that Steve's real goal was to kind of break even and then come out ahead on the comps, you know? So the idea is if you spend $100,000 into the casino a year, but you get that $100,000 back, but you've gotten like shrimp cocktails and ticket shows and free rooms and you know, and free beers and all this stuff, then you're really kind of coming out ahead, you know, because this guy's retired, you know, it's something interesting to do. And so, Eric explained to us that was really his end game. It wasn't that Steven was necessarily, Paddock was a smart guy, you know, and so that, you know, he wasn't doing this, you know, anybody who's smart probably understands that, you know, they don't pay those $300,000 light bills because people go into casinos and win. They pay it because people lose. And Paddock understood that too. Yeah. However, he was kind of in the business of kind of like playing the odds, and he would see like he would study the machines, and he would find out like, okay, you know, this particular machine pays out 3x from midnight to 4 a.m. So I'm going to do this machine. Yep. And so Eric explained to us that he was kind of in the game of just trying to like break even, and then it was really good for a lot of years. And when it started to go south was when, you know, things started to fall apart. Another factor that Eric helped us understand is that Steve's passion was like flying. Steve Paddock, one of his passions was, and he kind of like lost his ability to do that. And so there was like a number of things that kind of like just kind of came together. But a lot of it was, you know, Eric explained to us that Steven was also pretty disgruntled with how they wouldn't play a fair game. And like Steve's attitude was, okay, well, you guys, you know, this is supposed to be a fair game. You guys said you'd give me these things, and I put this amount of money through the machines, and now you're like taking those things away. And he kind of explained to us that more and more was kind of taken away from Steve over and over the years, and there was a lot of unfulfilled promises, and that they weren't necessarily playing a straight game, which is consistent with if you talk to high rollers in Vegas, and this is kind of the dirty truth that Vegas doesn't want you to know, is they play a lot of pretty nasty games with these guys. I don't know if you're familiar with what happened to Junior Seau in the time leading up to his suicide. Are you familiar with that story at all, about his experiences in Vegas?
I remember it was very much similar, where it was like he was literally driven to the point of madness.
Junior Seau, you know, like the Hall of Fame linebacker, would you know, he got taken into Vegas, who ultimately sadly committed suicide. Yeah. One of the things I learned while making this film is that, like, and not a lot of people know this, is that, you know, before he committed suicide, he'd actually, you know, gone out to Vegas with one of his friends, and, you know, he was given the full VIP comp treatment. Yeah. Oh, Junior, here's your free flight, and here's your suite, and here's your hot tub, and, you know, and all this stuff. So Junior rolls into Vegas with his buddy, and the first night he goes up like over $1 million, and so him and his buddy are staying in the suite. They just went over $1 million. Like, life is good. And then what happens? He gets this knock on the door, and who is it? It's the casino host. And, oh, Junior, don't you want to go out and play? Come play.
Yeah,
you know?
Come on out. We'll give you some chips. Come on out and have fun.
Yeah,
like we'll give you your first $10,000 if you just took us for $1 million.
Junior's buddy's being level-headed, and he's like, "Look, man, we're in Vegas. You're up. Let's just chill out in the room and watch a movie, and But no, Junior's an athlete. He's competitive. He goes out there and plays. Well, guess what happens?
Yep.
He not only loses that $1 million that he won, but he goes down $1 million that night.
Yeah.
Eventually takes out more money, loses that, and he actually leaves Vegas in the hole huge. And I'll tell you, his buddy who revealed this information was so scared about like retaliation, he wouldn't actually reveal the property. But this is all part of what drove Junior Seau to kill himself. And listen, I don't want to be overly simplistic. There was obviously a lot more going on there, but it certainly didn't help. And this kind of predatory thing that casinos do, and these hosts who put on their smiling face and kiss your ass while they really just looking to rip money out of your pocket. They're not doing. This is not the Lord's work. These guys are doing.
Well, and I'll share.
They're bad people with a bad goal.
I will share my casino experience as an employee. And the casino will go unnamed. Those that know me know where I worked, but it was one of those across the border from Texas casinos, and. Pretty much, if you start off at a casino, they're going to start you off on midnight shift. They're going to, when it's slow and you can learn, because the places are built to be mazes. They are built to keep you inside. For you to just eventually, after 10 or 12 drinks, go, I'm lost. Screw it. I'm going to sit down and gamble more. They'll bring me another drink.
Explained that to me, too. My brother was an architect. He did a lot of work in Vegas. And I remember it was fascinating walking through and he was explaining to me how they specifically everything is laid out to like maximize the amount of money they take out of your wallet.
Absolutely.
Everybody knows about how there's no windows or clocks and all that. That's like the thing that everybody. But it was really interesting to walk around like Caesars with him, and he was explaining to me, how, and how like the worst odds machines are the ones most prominently displayed.
That's
right. It's fascinating.
And the ones with the flashiest, prettiest lights.
Yeah. And they always put the prettiest girl next to that machine with the horrible odds where it's like, spin this wheel, and if it there's 30 different things, but if it lands on this one of 30,
she'll do this.
She'll win this, Your odds are like 3%. Something,
And but it was really more the fact of working, especially being there where a lot of the gamblers were transient, where they came in from Texas, that kind of stuff. But man, seeing that Wednesday night bus come in full of old people that were walking around and putting their tchotchkes up on the machine and rubbing it and talking to it, and like the picture of their grandkids there and stuff, and it's like, my Lord, why don't you just light a candle at an altar? Like, woo. And that they're there like spending retirement checks, that they're there, and hey, if you're there playing the nickel slots, great. But just it was the whole, as someone who studied psychology and everything, it was the addictive touching of the machines and rubbing them and talking to them that really disturbed me, where it was like, wow, this is actively feeding on some people here. And on a mentality, and
it's all done with and it's like, it's sad because on the one hand, it's like these people are putting themselves in that position, but is it really something that you need to have in each state? Do you really need, I just don't know that a lot of good really comes from it. I think any kind of argument that this is like, but that money from the casino does this or that, or like these, I think it probably does a lot more harm than good.
I'm sure a percentage of it does something for the community, but
there's a lot of like, when you start peeking behind the scenes of like what hardcore gambling does to people, it's not a pretty picture, and these people, and they know they're doing it, I always wonder, like, these casino hosts, just these glib, smiley people, it's like, when you really think about what they're doing, they're, there's just nothing, a lot of people do noble things for a living, teachers and, all kinds of people do, like, these people don't. They basically, kind of manipulate people into, making a rich company richer, and it's not a honorable thing to do, but whatever.
Yeah, it is one of those situations where, like, I am as capitalist as they come, my friend.
Yeah.
Straight up, like, I believe in if you let it is a self-righting system. If it's not crony capitalism that you're dealing with, like, the fair market will shake all things out. You know,
right? And I agree with that. I'm capitalist as well. I'm not anti.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely one of those, like, your business model there is to, like, take advantage of people in a weakened state.
There's no question that's the business model. And what I don't respond well to is, like, I mean, I don't know, but it's just the kind of glibness.
I got
my
like players cards.
These, like,
don't get me wrong.
Commercials, it's like, oh, we're helping create jobs, and well, what about the fucking person who doesn't have a place to live anymore? Or like, who's dumping their rent down your machines. You're not talking about that in your glib little commercials, you know. And for every thing that it creates, I think it does a lot of damage. So, you know, and listen, as a capitalist, I understand, like, you're there to make money, but I think there's also a denial of what's underneath that, you know?
Well, and let's start cracking into that just a little bit, because, you know, it really was, and after talking with you, after talking with Mike, after following this story since day one, man, it was really, let's get back to business as normal. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Yep.
And when you get to the point that, like, National Press Corps and stuff like that are suing the Sheriff's Department for Freedom of Information Act for hiding public documentation, you know, you really are talking about a special kind of corruption at that point.
And not only that, but the truth is that the reason for that corruption was because this guy had an election coming up.
Yeah.
And it wasn't going to look good. The fact of the matter is, he had officers being cowards in the hallway while Steven Paddock was murdering people. The fact is, they were in position to do something about it, and they didn't. And Sheriff Lombardo knew that the body camera footage would do that. And he also knew he had an election coming up, and that couldn't get out there, you know, not in front of the whole world, because they were on 1 October was, you know, probably one of the biggest media events of 2017 until it just completely got swept off the stage.
Yep.
And they knew this. And so to deceive the public, and then the other thing that was interesting is, you know, there was an accidental discharge in Steven Paddock's room. I mean, so think about this. An LVMPD officer fires a gun in Steven Paddock's room, and your sheriff just kind of doesn't mention that in the press conferences. I mean, they're having, like, multiple press conferences a day, and you're just going to kind of not mention that your officer was a boob and his gun went off in the room because he's incompetent?
Yeah.
You know, like, and so there was a suppression of information, and it was, you know, and here's the thing, man, with public officials, you know, with public entities or whatever, generally when they just come out and say we screwed up, people forget about it much faster.
Yeah.
And it does happen. I mean, mistakes happen, you know.
Sure.
But when you hide and bury things and mislead the public, and then I think you end up digging yourself in a deeper hole.
When you start giving timelines out hours after an incident,
right?
Hours after an incident, we had a timeline, and then that timeline just continuously shifted.
Yes,
continuously for weeks, for months,
and he was so mad about us calling him out about the shifting timeline, and it's like, okay, you can get mad about that, but you are the sheriff, and you have
stop asking your questions.
Stop
asking that question, but you haven't answered it.
The timeline until you could 100% verify it is correct, you know. Yeah, then the famous, please stop asking your question.
Yeah,
you know?
Please stop. I can't not answer that anymore.
Yeah, please stop asking your question at the press conference. That was unbelievable, you know. Not a good look.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. Well, you know, your documentaries have been, I mean, what happened in Vegas to begin with was up there in the Apple charts and stuff like that for God knows how long. And still up there.
Yeah.
What has it done for you in the film right now? I mean, it must be utterly heartbreaking right now to have been up to be featured at so many documentary festivals.
Right.
That are now canceled,
and then have it all taken away.
Due to
I mean,
COVID.
you're right. It is frustrating, but because like we were going to play Money Machine, and in April was going to be the big premiere of it. We're going to play it. We were going to play in Palm Springs and Cleveland International, which is a fantastic festival, and AM Docks is a great one, and we had a lot of these. It had actually had a lot more success than what happened in Vegas already with the way it was received from people in places, and also like getting write-ups from places like Forbes. And so then that all it just got taken away as the whole world went on hold. And so I was bummed out about it, but I mean, the whole world, everyone in the U.S. is suffering from this. So it's like I can't sit around and complain too much because, I mean, there's people who are losing their there's people with all kinds of problems because of COVID. So it's disappointing, but I just try to focus on the fact that at the end of the day, I still have my film at the end of all this. And at some point, this is all going to go away and the movie's and I'll be back out there watching that movie on a 60-foot screen with a huge audience, Well, there's nothing that replaces that, like the magic of cinema is that big screen, and nothing comes close to that, Well, streaming movies on the internet just isn't anything compared to that.
No, absolutely not. I will admit that there were a few movies that I was waiting on that I had purchased just to support the artists who made it. And my wife was like, "Oh, you paid $20 for that?" And I'm like, "I'd have paid $20 for a ticket at the theater and some popcorn." Like, I'm still supporting the art that I want to support, and I'm still supporting the same people. But fortunately, this is one of those topics that isn't going to get cold. Like it still just blows my mind that it was wrapped up so spit, shine, and slipshot.
Yeah, I mean, it was the deadliest mass shooting in U.S. history.
Yeah,
I mean, just sit there and think about that for a second.
Yep,
the deadly and so our film really peels back why it went away so quickly, and the powers that be in Vegas, why it was made to go away so fast, and kind of how. So it's really about it's really kind of there's what they presented to the world, and then there was the real story. Of 1 October in Vegas. And our film kind of tells the real story. We've already seen glad-handing politicians sitting up there at their podiums and pumping their fists in the air and saying Vegas strong and blah, blah, all this, and our film actually exposes that, Vegas strong wasn't, in the first 5 months that it raised over $10 million and less than $20,000 actually made its way to the victims. So you had politicians like Steve Sisolak, who rode this all the way to the governorship, sitting up there and making it look like, oh, he's doing this wonderful thing for the community, And so Vegas Strong gave him an opportunity to jump in front of cameras, And he was so busy jumping in front of the cameras, celebrating himself as this hero, doing this philanthropic thing for the community, that he couldn't actually make sure that money was getting to the victims. So, you and I are good friends with Shannon, and some of the people we knew who were actually like hurt in the attack. You're talking about people lost. They couldn't pay they were injured. They couldn't pay their rent anymore. They couldn't pay their car payment and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And here's this politician on TV grandstanding saying Vegas strong and all this stuff, and the money's not actually getting to the people. And by the time it did get to the people, it was kind of too late. The car had already been repossessed. And so these are the kind of things we expose, how Vegas strong was never really about anything other than politicians getting FaceTime. And that they were so busy jumping in front of cameras that they couldn't make sure the funds got to the people who needed them. And it's just really kind of, when you see what a politician's really about, it's rarely a pretty picture, And especially a Vegas politician, you know?
Yeah, but, precisely. Anyway. And, you know, as listener Angelica Gretchen is on the Facebook feed right now, and she just said the majority of the public so easily forgot all about it as well. And I think that was most definitely the informative disinformation campaign that was going on. You know, to the active campaign to keep it out of the news. You know, because this happened right up against other mass shootings,
right?
That were still in the news beyond this.
Yeah. In Parkland, still people talk about it. I mean, it's
you still see David Hogg go out and speak, all kinds of stuff.
But the other thing that we kind of expose in the film is we peel back why it went away so fast in the public consciousness. And one of the things we show is that, you know, there's a lot of things that people don't really understand or know about Vegas. And one of them is, you know, when you rent a room there, there's that, you know, you look at your receipt, and there's the resort fee, okay? You ever looked at the Vegas receipt and went, what is this resort fee? What is that for?
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah.
Well, so there's this entity in Vegas called the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority. And Vegas's bimbo mayor, Goodman, is on the board there, along with many other kind of big money players. And basically what they do is, a lot of that money from those resort fees goes to the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, and they have a budget of over, I think it's around $400 million a year.
Wow.
So you got 40 million plus visitors going to Vegas a year, and most of them are staying in those rooms, paying those resort fees, and a lot of that money is going to the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority. And what they do is they spend that money on advertising Vegas. They're the ones behind the What Happens in Vegas Stays in Vegas campaign, you know? And so they're the ones who, so they use those massive resources to really push their message out there. And did you notice that when the COVID-19 thing happened, you started seeing a lot more like of these kind of oily, like Vegas, you know, like, like we're in Vegas. We care about you, and we're going to be here for you when COVID-19 clears up. And you know, it's like, okay, you really just want people to come into your city so you can take money out of their pocket, you slick-ass liar, you know? But you started seeing these commercials pop up, and you started seeing that right after 1 October, too, and that's all, you know, the kind of like, come back to Vegas, spend your money, like, right away. Like, they just poured it on, and that all comes from the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority. And Carolyn Goodman, the mayor who made an ass of herself in front of the whole United States last week on the Anderson Super Show.
I don't think it was that hard for her to do.
No, she's pretty good at making that. I mean, when you're a generalist cheerleader who has no political experience, and it's just suddenly the mayor because your husband was the mayor. A lot of people don't know her story. Oscar Goodman was the mayor before Carolyn Goodman. That's her husband. And Oscar Goodman was he was a mob lawyer. He was the guy, you know, Casino, like the Joe Pesci character, Tony Spilotro. Oscar Goodman was the lawyer who got that guy off the hook for his crimes. And he was like the mob lawyer in Vegas. It's like, you know, all these people who've killed dozens of people. He was a scumbag who got up there and, like, got them off the hooks of their crimes, you know? So this is who you got a guy who made his fortune, like, getting murderers off the hook, and he's your mayor. So that was Oscar Goodman's background. I'm completely serious. And so he became the mayor, and then his term limits expired, and so he's just like, oh, well, maybe my wife could be the mayor now.
Hey, anybody with enough money to run a decent campaign can be mayor. Doesn't matter what you know.
Exactly, and that's the thing is Vegas is all about cash. So you can take anybody, even a lady who had zero political experience and who spent, you know, like Carolyn Goodman, you know, it's like you look at this one, it's not like she was on like the county commission, like worked her way up. It's like, you know, it's just like, oh, well, she was at home, like, watching soap operas, but now she's the mayor.
Yeah.
So of course she's an ass clown when you put her on when you start like getting Of course she's a generalist. Of course she's a cheerleader. Of course she doesn't actually have a plan, because she's not ever had a plan, and she shouldn't have ever been the mayor, but the money backs her. And so when you start looking at the funding of the politicians in Vegas, it's like no competition.
Yeah.
Like Joe Lombardo, he raised over $1 million because the casinos are just all in. Like they anoint politicians there, and it's like, so Lombardo got over $1 million for the sheriff's campaign. The next closest person got I think around 70,000, so less than 1/15th the amount of money.
Yeah.
So you don't have a real competition. It's the same thing with the mayor. Like, you look at the funding of the last mayor election, I don't know the actual numbers, but Goodman probably had at least 20 to 30 times as much money as anybody else, and a lot of that comes from the casinos. And it's like, okay, we're going to fund you. Look out for our interests, and that's what the cheerleader generalist was attempting to do when she said, "Open the casinos, even though I don't have a plan."
Well, and it strikes me offhand right now that was the last time we spoke on this show, Ramsey, was when that election was going on, because we were talking about how hard it was, number one, to unseat an incumbent, much less, doesn't matter if it's incumbent or not, that is a gap in a war fund.
$70,000 versus $1 million?
Like,
good
sorry.
luck.
I'm sorry. I don't care how popular you are.
So, it's just all about, whoever can get the money.
Yep.
And it's like, and of course that money comes with a price, And so when you're backed by the big money, that's what you find yourself all of a sudden on the national news saying ridiculous things like Miss Goodman did, and she got caught and called out by somebody who was a lot smarter than her and who kind of honed in on her and showed her the fraudulent generalist cheerleader dumbass that she is.
Yeah, exactly. And Mike Turber, our good mutual friend and guest of the show, actually is on the Facebook feed as well, prodding conversation. And he was like, "What an idiot Carolyn Goodman is. Wow, did she face plant on Anderson Cooper? Unreal." Yeah, that was
on the
truly.
Feed, right? Hey, Turber, how's it going, man? Are you joining in?
That was truly one of those Saturday Night Live Chevy Chase moments, where it was like, oh wow, this is going to be golden. And just kind of backstepping and going back just a little bit. I don't want you to give away too much of what happens in Money Machine. I cannot wait to see it.
Thank you.
In its entirety. But let's start going back into a little bit of this culture in Vegas. The real, because you were bringing up casino, and that's a big part of the culture in Vegas is the comp culture. The interview that y'all did with Eric Paddock, where he was talking about the fact that his brother was basically playing the long game on the comp world.
That's right. And actually, interestingly, we found out that Steven had actually started off in Reno before he came to Vegas. And so that was, so he'd been in Reno for a while doing a lot of gambling at the Atlantis, which if you've been in the Reno area, it's one of the nicer casinos. And we talk about that in the film, in Money Machine. We talk about how Paddock started out in Reno, and it was the same kind of thing, and he could be a bigger fish in a smaller pond in Reno. But then, eventually they kind of figured out that they're not making any money on this guy, and they kind of drove him out of town, by cutting off his comps. And that was the kind of what Eric Paddock kind of spelled out for us in the film, is that, I actually didn't know a lot of this stuff about the specifics of, and the other thing that it was pretty clear is that Steven Paddock was pretty good at this. He was a good gambler for a long time, or he wouldn't have been able to make, when you get to the point where people are cutting off your comps and stuff, that's because you're pretty good at it.
It's because you've
they
gamed
started recognizing
the system.
that they're not making any money off this guy.
You figured out how to game the system, is what it is. And at that point, you know, when you're in the high end, believe it or not, there is a high roller pit for slot machines, all that kind of stuff, folks.
Right.
And when you're playing those machines that are $10 a spin, $20 a spin, stuff like that, yeah, man. Like you will be on the same comp list as some whale coming in spending $10,000 a night in a high end poker room, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, here's the thing: like, you know, everybody wants to demonize Steven Paddock, and listen, I mean, what he did was monstrous. It was terrible.
Absolutely.
But the story's more complicated than that, and one of the things that people were hesitant to do is actually give him credit for being a good gambler. Like, he was able to keep this alive for as long as it was, you know, going into casinos and doing, you know, for 20-some years, because he was better at it than most people. And, you know, and you kind of, when we sat down, when Mike Turber got us Eric Paddock, who, you know, and I sat down with Eric, I could see Eric's a very, very smart person. And you can kind of, and I imagine Steve was very smart as well. It's just kind of interesting to see, to get the real story on what led up to this, as opposed to the MGM's version. You know, I mean, the power of MGM is unbelievable. I mean, they're the biggest corporation in Nevada, but they're really kind of a world power. I mean, you're talking about a company that does over $10 billion a year.
Well,
and I mean, after this happened, they've hired, like, I remember I remember hearing the PR firm they hired was like $10,000 an hour or something like that. I remember vaguely. So there's all that going on the surface, and their CEO Jim Neeren, like, sitting here calling this the actions of a despicable evil man, and simultaneously just kind of not mentioning MGM's role in, like, in the events that lead up to this. And so that all got buried. And so, you know, with their vast power, I mean, I think we need people to check that power. You know, that's one of the wonderful things about our country and the way the laws are set up, is that I can actually make a film like this, telling the truth about a corporation like MGM, and that I can actually walk outside without getting my head cut off.
Yeah.
I mean, if you made a film like this in Saudi Arabia, they'd just kill you.
Well, you know, granted, you have not been without your harassment.
No, I have not. But it hasn't.
Mike Turber has not been without his harassment.
Yeah. No, I think all of us who make exposés. I'll tell you what, though. One of the really interesting things that happened was, and Turber will tell you about this.
Hold on, let's ask Mike real quick. He's actually calling right now.
Okay, we can get Mike on here. Mike and I will tell you about Luis Castro, who
this just turned fun.
Brother-in-law.
Are you there, Mike? Okay, hold on. Give me just a second, Mike. Hold up.
Sure.
I'm trying to get Mike in on the Bluetooth connection right now on the old Rodecaster there. You there, Mike?
I am here. I don't know. Can you hear me 5x5?
I hear you. Hey, Mike, how's it going, man?
Hey, buddy, how you doing?
Nice little surprise there.
Welcome, Mike Turber.
Tell him about our experience with Luis Castro, so it's like perfect time for you to chime in here.
Oh, am I allowed to talk about that?
Hey, you're allowed to talk about anything you want on my show.
Oh, well, okay, so
as long as you aren't F-bombing things.
Well, okay, so here's the thing. So Jesus Campos, as everybody recalls, was like the security guard who got injured in the shooting, was kind of like hailed as this hero. Now, there was a lot of interesting things going on beneath the surface there, like the fact, and Mike Turber actually dug a lot of this up, that, people wondered, like, why did Jesus Campos, why did he only do that one fluff interview with Ellen and then never speak again? And, so there was like a so MGM, after this happened, like, gave this guy a condo, he's living in and he had to sign a non-disclosure agreement. So he's basically,
on their tab.
Huh?
He's basically on their tab.
Yes. Yeah. And so there's all this stuff going on behind the scenes about like how this guy's being manipulated and how and so one of the people that we got in touch with, Mike and I, was Luis Castro, who was his brother-in-law. And this is really interesting, and it's an odd story. Mike, you want to start us off here?
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I guess I could. I contacted Luis because he was saying some rather bizarre things, and I vetted him as quickly as possible to see if he was in fact who he said he was. Got him on the phone, talked to him for a little bit. He was shopping for an attorney. He had all kinds of dirt on Jesus Campos and stuff like that, and in some ways, we're interested in that. In some ways, we didn't want to get into some, dirt slugfest, but at the same time, we just wanted to get to the bottom of the truth about Jesus Campos because he was the major mystery to this whole thing. If you could choose one character in this entire scenario and say, okay, which guy was probably the most mysterious and that we had the most issues with, it would be Jesus Campos. And so naturally, having Luis Castro, who was his brother-in-law, come onto the scene and give us some information that might shed some light on some things that are, just not well known would be a good thing. So talked with him, got him hooked up with Ramsey. We flew him out here and did an interview with him. And then it got bizarre.
Okay, so Luis Castro. So we've been in contact with him. Mike was the one who found him and all this stuff. And this guy has some pretty explosive information that does, in fact, check out, And he was saying things to us, like the fact that Luis or that Jesus was basically using the cane as a prop, and that the round, when he was living and on Ellen and all this stuff, that was just a show. And so he was really kind of giving us the real story because he was close to it. He'd actually been with Jesus Campos in the days after the shooting, like at the Vidara. So we're getting like the inside story of what was really going on. And so, it was pretty clear to Luis that he was going to come out here to L.A. and we were going to interview him. And so, that was made very, very clear. And he agreed. And so, we got him a plane ticket and everything. And Mike and I, we sat him down, we interviewed him for I would say at least an hour. There's lights, there's a microphone, he's sitting there in front of the camera. And so then we, it's like maybe midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. or something, and we finish up and I get out the release form, which you always use on there's a legal precaution. And all of a sudden he goes, oh, you know what? Actually, I don't think I want to sign that. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, I don't know. I don't think I want you to use this. So I'm looking at Mike. It's like, okay,
it was rather bizarre, and we're sitting there with our jaw dropped on the floor, going, okay, well, what did you think this was going to be?
Yeah, what did you think the cameras, lights, and microphone were for?
Just hang out, maybe have a sandwich.
We already filmed that for an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this guy, so here he is. I've gone, picked this dude up from the airport. We interviewed him. We paid for his ticket, and he's like, "No, I don't think you should. No, I'm not going to sign." Mike and I just are picking our jaws at the floor. Can you believe this guy?
That's some chutzpah.
Okay, listen, it's late. Okay, and so I just figured, okay, well, I got to give him a ride back to the airport in the morning. We'll just try it again in the morning, maybe this dude's tired, he'll come to his senses and he'll sign the piece of paper. And, everybody knew that's what he was out here to do. We didn't come out to LA to eat a sandwich with this guy, And so then it's the morning and I'm getting ready to take him back to the airport and he's just like, yeah, no, I don't think I want to sign that. So I said, all right.
I didn't even know that was an option. If somebody flew you across the country to come do an interview.
He's at the Long Beach airport. I'm here in Encino, and I just said, oh, you don't want to sign it? All right, well, get the hell out of my house. And I kicked him out of the house. And all of a sudden this guy's like, he's like, well, what do you mean, man? Like, give me a ride back to the airport. I'm like, you don't just stop here to, like, waste our time and then expect me to, like
hell no.
Like, you know, and so all this stuff. And so, but finally I just said, you know what, man, I'll give you a ride back to the airport. But it's very clear that you agreed to do the interview. You know, like, we have text confirming that that's what you're out here to do. And so I take him back to we put him on the plane, and then he just starts, like, immediately, like, blowing up my inbox saying, like, you know, you don't have permission to use the interview. So this guy, it appears that what he was attempting to do was some kind of, like, but wasn't smart enough to do, was to actually, like, give us the information and then make us pay for it. Yeah. I mean, that's how I can figure. And so, but here's the thing. I knew, knowing what I do about the law, I know that if you sit for an interview,
I was getting paid.
What's that?
I was like, Lewis kept asking me. He says, like, when you'd walk out of the room, he says, how much are you getting? How much should I ask for? And I said, I'm not getting anything, bro.
Bro.
Yeah, documentaries, that's just not how, like, ethically, you don't go around paying people because that pollutes their,
that's
you know, what they say. It's just not something that's usually done, you know? And so, but anyway, so this guy had some kind of half-ass scheme that he wasn't smart enough to pull off. And so, but I knew that once you have somebody sit for an interview and once they've agreed, which, you know, he agreed on camera to do it, the release form doesn't really matter, you know, when you have a fair use lawyer and all this stuff. And so I could have used it anyway, but ultimately what happened was we put the interview and we cut it in the film, and everybody just kind of, like, looked at it and goes, who's this guy? He's really inarticulate. I don't believe him. I don't like this guy. Get him out of, so we cut him out of the film because he was damaging the film.
Yeah.
You know, and so, but anyway, and so now this guy continues to, like, email me, like, saying, you do not have permission to use my footage. And I said to him, I said, well, guess what? You're in luck because I didn't put you in the film. You were in the film at one point until person after person basically commented that you looked like a dumbass thug that they don't believe. I agree, you are a dumbass thug, and I don't believe you, so I cut you out of the film. And he just, like, emails me back like an empty. He took a picture of the release form unsigned and said, you do not have permission. And I said, did you not just hear what I said?
No, I didn't use it.
I thought you came across like a dumbass thug, and therefore I cut you out of the film. You're not in the film, so therefore it's irrelevant. But anyway, so this guy.
Hold on to that real quick because I want to save the juice for this for here in just a minute. As Mike knows, we are up against the 1 hour mark. So thank you so much for WMLD and all of our audience there in the Hudson Valley for tuning in. As always, make sure to stop on by the website and check out the rest of this interview. Now, the rest of this story, and Mike had told me part of this story previously, I think right after it happened. Because I had literally just had one happen to me with my other podcast where a dude had, like, I sent him a promo copy of the podcast, like, here it is, you know, make sure the guest approves the copy, everything else. All that kind of stuff, you know, like copy for approval. And then he went off and released it on Facebook, like publicly. And I was like, you cannot release my episode. He's like, no, I have copyright on that. I'm like, you have zero copyright. I don't know. I mean, I don't know where you think
deal with are reasonable and nice, but it's like when you're out there, like when you're out there doing investigative stuff, and you're talking to, like, many people. Occasionally, there's going to be a schmuck or a fool, or a
or someone trying to take advantage of the situation and get paid a little coin for a story.
Yeah, and it was funny. Like, he wasn't smart enough to pull off the little scheme that he cooked up, and so, but he's not giving up on it. Like, you know, I got an email from him a couple days ago, and I just called Mike, and I was like, Mike, what is this guy even trying to do? You know, and Mike said he's looking for easy street. He's, you know,
And that's what he was doing in the beginning. When I very first contacted him, he was going from attorney to place, and he was shopping his story is effectively what he was doing. And so when he realized he wasn't, getting anywhere with whatever he was saying. I mean, he'd been to different attorneys in Vegas, and he had called some different shows and what have you, and he talked to different people, and no one was giving him any money for his story. I guess he felt at some point that he'd have to give it away to a degree and then come up with some other scheme to recoup it on the back end somehow, I guess is what he's trying to do.
Yeah.
He wasn't smart enough to do that.
He wasn't clever enough to... I mean, and a lot of people...
That's what every actor breaking into the business does, right?
And then ask for the money is not an especially smart thing to do. But
we'll pay you in pizza right now, and we'll pay you money afterward. That's...
Yeah. Oh, I remember.
It was. I called Mike up the other day, and I said, "This dude's sending me emails about how I don't have I just couldn't grasp what this guy was trying to achieve or why he was still contacting me."
My lord. And
I think he had ulterior motives for coming out anyway, because the whole time he was here, he was trying to get to somebody downtown Los Angeles or whatever. He's like wanting me to give him a ride down there and stuff like this. And I'm like, I did.
At 3 a.m. Yeah, I'm sure he was he had some very wholesome things to accomplish by taking a ride downtown at 3 a.m. There's a lot of great things that go on at 3 a.m. in downtown LA at 3 a.m.
Pressing business. Maybe he had a loadout
that might
to
have been
go
another
do.
Reason, But,
he may have had to go load out a show.
What's that?
He may have had to go load out a rock and roll show like me, Band ended it too. We load out at 3 a.m. after we're done striking everything. Who knows? Give the man the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. Well, maybe there was a church that was open at 3 a.m. Maybe the man just wanted to go to a church or something. But I would suspect not. I would suspect that he was probably
up to something.
Anyway,
go to
up to
Well, but now, Mike, having you here, what has it been like having these private conversations with Eric Paddock? Because you have really been since the beginning of this, and I've really wanted to chat with you, especially about some of the stories that have come out lately from supposed lovers. Things like that.
The Kate story and the text messages. Eric and I both are in agreement. We don't necessarily, his first words to me was that he couldn't, it was almost like I can't confirm or deny, but he said it his way, which is some choice words. But basically, the text messages that were released in, was it Daily Mail or Daily Star, whatever it was, which I think I'm actually going to be in Daily Star tomorrow, but, which is weird, but anyway, so he doesn't believe that was legit. There's a lot that's happened since all this came on, and Eric. I looked at my text message, and out of the last 2 years, I have not texted anyone more than Eric. Just back and forth.
Even me?
Yeah, even you. Yeah, oddly
enough,
you're like number 4, number 5. Ramsey's number 3.
What you find, and Mike will probably agree with
far down the finger list there.
This is one of the challenges we had in this film too. Is that there's a lot of people who try to use this. Like when something happens like this, there's people who kind of like sit back and see how they can inject themselves in the story and figure out how they can use it to their own end. Kind of like Luis Castro appeared to be trying to do. But and so some of these, and Mike will tell you, like earlier on, we were in contact with several people that we heard their story, like they said they met Paddock or whatever, and you kind of like talk to them, and a lot of these people are pretty convincing, but then you really start vetting the story, and it starts to fall apart a little bit. And I'll tell you one thing about Eric Paddock is he is a very honest guy. This is one of those guys where if you are like BSing him or kissing his ass or something, he's just you're gonna start to see him get very impatient. He just doesn't like lies or BS, and so I tended to believe like his version was always pretty close to the truth because there was zero attempt to project
an image.
that's what I've always felt about Eric, is that he was telling the absolute truth. And a lot of the people around this who say this about Steve, or it was his mistress, or this or that, when you really start looking at the facts, sometimes these things don't line up. And we thought, Mike and I both thought, that we have to be dead on right about this. We can't have anything in here except facts. And so, you know, some of those people that we thought were not telling the truth found themselves on the cutting room floor. Yeah. You know, if we thought at all that they were trying to use this.
Well, because, hey, the conspiracies abound.
It was to go through and look someone in the face and then hear their story and everything that they say. And then at the end of the day, you know, Ramsey's got a difficult task. He's got to put this movie together and get it out there and get it into distribution, what have you, all these different things. And part of that has to be with how the movie is, you know, the movie's insured too. I mean, you have to look at it from another standpoint that the information that goes into this thing, if we come out, we say a whole bunch of stuff that's just complete hogwash and BS.
That's right.
Then there's a liability factor to be.
Well, MGM's got a buck or two. You know, you come out with these out. I mean, you're talking about a company that makes over $10 billion a year. Yeah. You know, like you don't. I mean, you come out and say anything but the truth. Yeah. Like if you give these people anything other than the truth, they can tear you down. And so we didn't screw around with that. Like if we thought, you know, Mike and I rigorously vetted things, and if we thought that people were not telling the truth, we got it out of the film real fast. Because you can't, you have to have this airtight, especially when you're exposing a corporation that has billions of dollars.
Well, and this is one of those that, like I said, I've followed both of you guys closely and personally since our relationship started. And Ram, you are one that I've just kind of, since the announcement of this documentary, I have purposefully left on the back burner as far as coming back on the show, things like that, because I knew that what you were doing and the things that you were delving into and the documents that were being released were so entirely in depth. Like it's literally a year of research in and of itself, just to go through and read the stuff that was released by the sheriff's department, forcibly released. Forcibly released.
I mean, they did a lot of things to block information, and another reason, you know, the movie. I got a lot of flack for what's taking so long. Why does the movie take? I mean, every day I get to hear that from somebody. The answer is, we want this to be right. We needed it to be solid, and we also needed all the footage and information. And the LVMPD put up every barricade to prevent information from getting out. And it was, you know, it was really after the Supreme Court ordered them to release the documents that we started to get all the information. And a lot of that information came out after Lombardo was elected. So they used every legal maneuver in the book to obstruct information. And you really can't make a film, like, you have to be right, and you have to have all the footage to make sure you're right, because you have to look at it and make sure there's not contradictory things. You
could make a movie, you couldn't make a documentary.
Yeah. You could I mean, there's people who just want to make a quick buck. Yeah. They just want to throw something out into the world.
You could tell.
They don't care if it's true or not.
We could have Bigfoot thrown in there.
More important that,
all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. It's better to make something that's right, or that's actually true, rather than to just make something that it can be exposed as BS. You know? Right. So we needed to make sure we were right.
The movie in the beginning, when I saw the first cut of it, and you know, Ramsey did. I mean, this is the best editor I've ever seen. I mean, I know some editors, and this guy here can piece together a story that just grabs you, and he could run 3 concurrent stories at the same time and weave them in and out of each other and weave them right back into the climax at the end, and you're like, holy crap, I get it now. I get it just all makes sense. That to me was amazing. And the thing in the beginning was, as you start to film a movie like this, the story is obviously leaning towards, you know, one side, and you hear all the victim stories, then you hear all the local businesses, and then you talk to people who have a story to tell or something that's a little out of the ordinary, and so forth. And then after a while, you start saying, wow, there's a bigger picture here that's really, really dirty. and it was and that's what that's where the film went, is into an area that the mainstream media isn't willing to go. And, you know, hats off to Ramsey. He's got the biggest cojones out there to be able to pull this off. And there's going to be some head shaking.
Mike's the one, you know, not for this to be like the Mutual Appreciation Society or whatever here, but Mike's the one who pulled down Eric Paddock. And that was really a big part of the film, because he's the one who was able to cut through the BS and really backtrack and it was really Mike's relationship with Eric. But he's the one who was able to cut through the BS and tell us what was really going on with MGM and Steven Paddock. And that story, obviously, MGM has no interest in getting out there. And so, you know, and that happened. It was a great collaboration. It's one of those things where a certain person's skills line up with yours.
Yeah.
And so, you know, Mike, and also it's nice to have people who, you know, when you're making a movie, it's good to have people who don't give a F, you know?
Yeah. We're off the terrestrial radio. You can fucking curse now.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, when you're making a movie, it's nice to have people who don't give a fuck. And Mike Turber is one. I mean, you know, like, whatever you need done, he'll find a way to do it. So.
He gets out there. He gets in the mix.
There's some blooper reels we could really have on this, because I have done some crazy ass shit in Vegas. And
that's not a lie.
I may reveal one of them tonight. I don't know, but there was several incidences, and one recently, but which I guess.
Yeah, see, I don't want to say these because, you know, I don't know how you feel about a police car being at your door in a half hour.
Yeah,
so.
Probably don't want to say it. There are some ways.
But the stories are unbelievable. Like, there were times where I was just like, Mike, no. Why did you do that? No way. He's like, no, here's a picture. And I'm not getting specific, but...
Well, and even in relation to the shooting in Mandalay Bay, like, Mike was the one that went with the reporter up the back elevator, you know, and just straight up strolled in the back door, you know. And I tell people all the time, if you wear black and have a multi-tool on and stuff, you'd be surprised where you could walk in.
Oh yeah, and not only that, but if you're skilled in the art of BS, like you know, I mean, there was a certain trick to the wind that was interesting.
Well, and to see the fact that the 911 system at hotels is tied in specifically to the sheriff's department, not to local Las Vegas PD, stuff like that. That the call systems to high roller rooms go specifically there and circumvent the typical 911 system. Right. Even the revelation of that.
Well, not only that, but like people. Then there's the question of why there isn't cameras in the hallways in these major hotels, and the answer to that is because there's been known to be high rollers and hookers and drugs in those hotel rooms. Okay, so I'm just being real. Okay, so if you've got cameras in those hallways of those hotels, and some, you know, and drugs get delivered, or you know, a prostitute gets beat up, gets in a fight with a high roller, all of a sudden you're part of that. If you're the hotel, you're part of that liability. Or even if like she calls 911 and the police get called and this high roller gets embarrassed. Yeah, because the story in the newspaper the next day, and here's the video that corroborates it. All these issues can be avoided by just simply not having cameras there. And so that's you know, that's the other thing that Vegas,
the footage
why Vegas doesn't have that is because shady things go on in those rooms. And they know, and they don't, and if they don't have a camera there, they don't have to be a part of it.
Hey, if somebody was dumping 10, 20 grand a day at your property, wouldn't you maybe protect them? Like that's their mentality. And what's interesting is in even the trailer for Money Machine, whenever you see the hallway footage of the Las Vegas PD officers just straight up chilling in the hallway and going, wow, oh my God, he's blasting off. Like, it's kind of disturbing to see how calm they are about literally waiting for him to expend the magazine. And then to know that's all body camera footage. Not a bit of that was hotel camera footage. Not a bit of that.
That's correct. No, not in the hallways.
And if you went 3 floors down, it would be.
Right. But I'll tell you what. I mean, it opens up another question of if there had been surveillance in those hallways, if you weren't trying to protect these high rollers, does that mean that a situation like this is less likely to happen?
No.
Because here's the truth. The truth is this: you really shouldn't be able to bring up over 20 guns to a hotel room and open fire and not have anybody there who can stop it.
Well,
you shouldn't be able to kill 58 people.
That's true.
And injure and the fact of the matter is that's an absolute failure. Yes, Steven Paddock was a monster, but he shouldn't really have been able to do that. And MGM and their BS security and things like not having cameras in the hallway so they can protect their high rollers who have hookers and drugs in the room and they don't want to be a part of that lawsuit. That's a question I think that should be asked as well. And also that there really hasn't been any long-standing changes in Vegas. They're just back to getting the registers ringing, and there's no, they put up the PR front, but you're not seeing a real change.
Granted,
people who are gone.
Vegas is the town of SHOT Show. I work a show that abuts that every year, and it is wild to literally see people going up and down escalators with like rifle cases, things like that.
Yeah, the SHOT Show,
and that is
I literally the last SHOT Show I did, I had in my room over 60 guns. In my room. From the SHOT Show.
Absolutely.
I was handling transfers and things like that. So that's a normal occurrence for anyone doing the SHOT Show.
And granted, it's not like he was strolling to the elevator with his bump stock and all that kind of stuff. Everything was inside of cases, rolling in suitcases, that kind of stuff. So you really do get into that question of what are we going to do? Start searching everybody's suitcase before they go up to their room? But the fact is, he didn't go up through the normal escalator or the normal elevators. He went up through the high roller elevators.
Right, so did Mike Turber over 30 times.
I know. Chutzpah,
and nobody questioning him,
just to mess with him, because he comes on Sunday morning and says no one has ever been in a Wynn facility and rode the service elevator without security. I was like, really? Okay, challenge accepted.
Yeah, okay.
So then I'd go over there.
Yeah. All right.
And then how long? And then so Mike does it. He actually rides the security the elevator without security. And I think you landed on a floor and you were like, hey, are these salad bowls? Do these go over here? Or, I'm with the dishwasher vendor.
Yeah.
So
that was me.
Pretty good. But then a couple weeks later, I think, Mike, you got like a "Don't ever come on our property again" letter, right? Wasn't that?
Yeah, that was at the Wynn, and at the Wynn, the head of their security is I can't remember her name. But I tell her security guy after I just did a complete walk through their security, ended up back behind I walked the entire casino backstage or back behind the casino, did their three service elevators there, and then came out. And then I told their security guy as I was leaving, hey, guess what? You hear about that guy that was like going up that service elevator at Mandalay Bay? He said, yeah, that was pretty messed up. It wouldn't happen here. I was like, really? I just
Hi,
did.
Nice to meet you. I'm the same guy.
I just did it to you.
And what's also interesting is there was only a couple days after that happened, after Steve Wynn went out and said, this would never happen to Wynn prop when he got really righteous about it. It was only a couple days later when his whole world started to fall apart. And he started, I always wondered if that was a coincidence that after he called out the biggest gaming company in town, all of a sudden, his all this stuff comes out about him allegedly being a sexual predator. I thought that was pretty interesting. The timing of that was interesting.
Somebody may have leaked some information on that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But he sits there and he says on the Sunday with Charles, whatever his name is, on the Sunday Fox. He's basically saying he spent tens of millions of dollars, hired ex-SEAL people, and I knew one of the SEAL guys that he hired, and a whole bunch of different, cybersecurity is put into place, a bunch of different security measures put into place. And each time I did that, when I did the Wynn and I did Mandalay Bay, not one time did I ever manipulate a lock. Did I ever try to talk someone into allowing me to do it. Not one time. I literally just walked right in.
Yeah, there was.
I did start. Yeah, I just did my thing, and it's part of penetration testing, and that's the lowest level of penetration testing you can do, which is just fitting in, being the gray man.
Yep.
Just fitting in and getting back there.
Yeah,
and doing
there was no social engineering. Hey, how you doing? My name's Mike. I'm here to check the phone lines. just need to get up into the offices. There was none of that. There was no spycraft involved. You went up, pushed an escalator open or elevator open button, and it opened.
In this particular
and you got
instance,
in it.
there was no spycraft involved. I'll say that was my
Exactly. And the thing was, is everybody says, "Well, who cares?" What was it? What was the big deal about going to the service elevators? The big deal was that an attorney had asked the question. It's Craig Island. I can release that information now. Craig Island is the attorney, not Catherine Lombardo. Craig Island is the attorney who actually asked, "What does it take to get up the service elevator? Does it take a key card? Does someone have to go with you?" Because at this time, no footage was released. No one knew exactly the dynamics of the logistics of how that occurred. And so, going back in time to that day, Craig's asking that question, and I said, "Well, I can find that out for you." And that's how that happened. And then weeks later, I can go ahead and reveal this now, and you'll be one of the first to know it. I actually had a phone. I was so enamored about how easy it was to do. I started bringing people on tours. I said, "Hey, anybody want to go up the service elevator?" So I had survivors go up with me. I even had a specific attorney who everyone knows is near and dear to my heart, who has left us now, which was Catherine Lombardo. I had her go up the elevator, and various other people, and and then of course we had a certain individual that went up the elevator with me, and we got that on the local Fox News there as well.
Yeah.
It was just and of all the people to go up the elevator with me,
please stop asking your question. That certain individual.
Please stop making sense.
Stop telling your story. but that was a way to embarrass them too. Is that if I could get this person, who's probably her face and my face are probably on every security camera, watch team monitor that's there saying, "Don't let these people in here anymore." But they never did. The only time I got escorted out was during the 1-year reunion when I was up in the foundation room, and 13 of their officers come up and ask me, "Are you Mike Turber?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I turn around and there's 13 cops there, and I'm like, I'm escorted out of the building. But they did not trespass me. So I went back the next day. Had no problem.
Wow.
Well, let me tell you a story. So, doing kind of the work I've done, kind of investigating Vegas and exposing it, I have a lot of people who live in that town who kind of like what I'm doing. They follow me, but can't really let their boss, sometimes they work for the casinos that, I'm or they work for an MGM property. And I remember randomly one day I got this Facebook message, and it's from somebody who worked in security, and they said, "Hey, I like what you do, but just so you know, there's a picture of you on the wall at the casino I work at, and it says, if you see this guy, call the LGMPD."
Wow. And that's how you know you're doing good work.
And I said, "Oh, man, can you take a picture of that?" And sent. He's like, "No, because they'd be able to figure out who the hell it is." It's only a number, but that guy. I mean, I have stuff like that happen.
But they can't figure out who took the leaked images, right?
Right.
I mean, here's the thing, though. Those are catalyzing moments as an individual. And it either sends you one of two ways. Either you stop and you go running, or you go, awesome. Let's see what else can happen. And I remember distinctly 2 moments in the history of this show. Number one was the second episode after Dr. John Hall came on talking about targeted individuals. And I got a 3-page long email from a lady in Israel saying that she had been targeted for years. And it was one of those wow, I don't care if she's the only person that ever listens to this show again. This show is for her. And then after that was with you guys in this story. Wow. And it was right after I had Ram on, and then I had Mike Turber on. almost back to back, and I went and did a week in Vegas for a show, and I had done the two of you guys, and then also talked about like the UFO disclosure going on with the CIA.
Right.
And I got an alert on my LinkedIn profile that like your LinkedIn is getting attention, and it was like you've had 121 searches this week. And I looked, and 3/4 of them were from people from like the Department of Defense and the Department of the Army and stuff. And I was like, ooh.
Yeah, sorry about that. That's my bad.
Hey, no, those were two catalyzing moments where it was like, this show can make a difference.
Well, here's the thing, man.
We gotta be willing to talk about this stuff. We gotta be willing to get it out there.
Yeah, there's all these things in the way. People say, like, why do you need to make this film? Because the truth needs to get out there. That's the answer. Like, even if the truth isn't pretty, the truth is still the truth.
That's right.
And the Steven Paddock story is a lot more complicated than these glib PR flacks at MGM are going to want to make it sound like, you know?
Yeah.
And so, you know, when you have these powerful forces obstructing the truth, you find a way to get to the truth. And so, and get that out there. And I believe that this kind of work has to be done because the truth matters, even if the truth is ugly.
That's right.
Because if
truth hurts.
Like the only way you're going to fix things or change things is when you actually see it for what it is.
Yeah, tell me.
You see Vegas for what
tell
it
me
is.
one time a good friend or family member ever told you the straight up unabridged truth and you liked it. Ever. Once. It wasn't that it wasn't true or right. It was just that you didn't like it.
Yeah, truth hurts.
Truth hurts.
Yeah, but the thing about Vegas is getting it's one thing to get the information out there, and there is no time frame. There's no we got to rush to get this documentary out while everything's still hot. You know, that's the one thing I admired about Ram is that he wasn't doing it that way.
Yeah.
Which I had seen that in some other documentaries, but in this case, it was important to get the story right. It was important to get the whole story, and even waiting until after the 2-year deadline for the lawsuit, because some documentaries it came out long before the lawsuit was even settled, so it wasn't a complete story. Even now, it's going to be 90 some odd % complete, which is as close as a documentary could ever hope to get to. And that's important when someone watches these things, because you watch a documentary after a while and you go, oh, wow, you know more about the end of the documentary before the documentary gets to the end. And this won't be one of those. You're going to get information that you simply won't get anywhere else, information that is just in your face. Here it is. Here's what really happened. Here's what happened after the fact, and here's the people who did it, and we're naming them by names. And the truth, you're right, the truth hurts. And it's definitely going to hurt the people that probably need to be hurt, because they're the ones that did this and swept it under the rug, and that's who needs to be not necessarily held accountable, but in a roundabout way, held accountable for their actions. People need to know what exactly happened behind the scenes.
Well, and
not only that, but if you call out, I've always operated. The reason I do what I do is because I think that once you bring the truth out into the open and show it to the world, like, even though what you usually find is that your detractor, your MGMs, your LVMPDs, they're not actually going to give you the credit of like saying, he was right and we're changing this. Right. What they're going to do is they're going to ignore you and pretend that it doesn't exist. But can Sheriff Joe Lombardo just continue obstructing public information and continue like this kind of stuff after he's been called out? And the answer, I hope, is no. And so I kind of operate under that. If you're calling out police brutality, you're calling out, casino greed and lack of security and how this happened, that even though they're never actually going to give you the satisfaction of saying that you made a difference and they're going to change, it does matter, and it does change. Like, a good example of that is like the movie Blackfish, about SeaWorld.
Yeah.
Well, that movie's perfect. I mean, it tells the truth. And it's, and it said everything that needed to be said about SeaWorld. And SeaWorld would never give that movie any credit. But damn good and well that they changed the way they did things because of that film, even though they're never going to give that filmmaker credit for it. And so like that's how films can actually make a difference in the world.
Right.
You know, you're never going to get that satisfaction from the people you're exposing, because, you know, but they go home and bitch to their wives and girlfriends about you at the dinner table. That damn Ramsey, that damn Mike Turber or whatever. But then, you know, in the press comments, who
didn't love to hate Michael Moore back in the day?
Things out in the open. Huh?
Who didn't love to hate Michael Moore back in the day? You know? Like,
but I love what Michael Moore did. I mean,
absolutely.
That guy is just so he's a good filmmaker. I mean, that guy knows how to tell a story.
Dude. He doesn't care. He will come up to you on the street with a camera and a microphone and ask you the question. He doesn't give two craps.
Not only that, but Michael Moore was funny. I mean, his films were funny, and they were unpretentious.
They were very poignant in the way that they were put together.
He gets a lot of criticism, but this is a guy. You got to take the good with the bad. And Michael Moore is like, you know, I mean, he had a good sense of humor. He's a good storyteller.
Hey, you know,
and, I would argue he's a guy who did a lot more good than bad, even if people hate him or something.
Most definitely, man. And I mean, a lot of people look at me, and even my wife sometimes, and it's like, "Oh, you're poking the bear," and I'm like, "I'm supposed to poke the bear."
Yeah,
the bear ain't supposed to sleep.
The bear needs to be poked.
The bear ain't supposed to sleep.
The bear goes around the forest, smacking people out of the way because he's a bear, so he's a bully.
Yeah.
You know, he picks things up, throws them around, and so somebody needs to come along.
This is our forest,
the bear. In check, you know. And in our case, the bear is like MGM, you know, in Vegas. You know, we're poking the damn bear. Even though the bear's going through the woods, just tossing everything, eating everything, we're poking it. You know,
one of the bigger bears is now keep in mind there, and it's not just me and Ramsey. There was a ton of people out there doing some research.
Oh yeah.
In this investigation, so there were people on the street that were doing stuff, that were, you know, feeding information to myself, to Laura, to Blackstone, to all these different people that are out there. And some of the information was factual, some of it people couldn't verify, but they ran with it anyway. But the end, a lot of information that came out of the Las Vegas the shooting, as far as the research community, came from those YouTubers and those bloggers and those people that were actually had the balls to put the information out there in such a way that people are like, going, wow, there's more to this. And that actually, for me, was a different experience, because this is not my first rodeo, obviously, but after about 10 or 13 of these things, you start getting numb to some of the ways they're handled. But this one kind of, because of the video with Melissa Ramirez, I ended up in the limelight, so to speak, but not limelight per se, but, you know, bad word choice. But that kind of put me in a different area, and I was like, wow, this is different. And at the same time, I started realizing we're putting out information that the LVMPD can't get,
That's
that
right.
the FBI didn't get,
and that the local news can't get.
Or maybe they got and didn't want out there. That's the other side of the equation.
That's true.
Exactly.
You know, and then the other thing is, like, it's unbelievable to realize what a shoddy job the Vegas media did.
Yeah.
And it's also probably not an accident, you know, that they did a shoddy. Like, this is about get this damn thing to go away.
Mike and I have talked numerous times about how media is utterly complicit in these things. They're in the forefront of it. Like
sometimes in some towns.
No,
some towns the media does good work. But Vegas isn't one of them.
No, and it definitely wasn't the Vegas media that was suing the LVMPD to get information and to get documents released, things like that.
Just there's a lot of
press organizations in the U.S. I mean, I think it was like. Gosh, I mean, it was like, I think the Associated Press was one of them. I mean, that's a huge organization.
There's 10 of them. There was about 10 of them. The Las Vegas Review-Journal was the main one that pushed it forward. So I do give a little bit of kudos to them on that. But they went a certain distance, and I'm sitting there watching the Supreme Court ruling in the Supreme Court case and their arguments. And I'm going, but wait, you're not done, because we still haven't got all the footage. We still, to this day, even though they were ordered by the Supreme Court, we still don't have all of the body-worn camera footage. We still don't have all the documents. There's so many different things we don't have. And that's a problem. And pretty much Las Vegas Review-Journal was leading the pack, because you had CBS, you had AP, you had all these different organizations that were on that suit with them. But in the end, it lost there was no more wind for the sails, and that was it. And it's sad because there's still a lot of information out there.
Do you think that was necessarily, at least in your experience in the intelligentsia industry, Mike? Do you think that was something that was purposefully done?
No, I don't think it was. I don't think it was purposely done by Las Vegas Review Journal. So let me be very clear: the media outlets did not drop the ball because they were told to or anything like that. What happened was they were stonewalled so much and so hard for so long that after a certain point, you got to realize, okay, are we really going to get that much more information? It's going to be different.
Yeah.
How do you know? That's my question, is how would you know until you see it? When you were told that you were supposed to get everything, that means everything. It doesn't mean Sheriff Lombardo's has to sit
bits
there and pick
pieces.
through, oh shit, we don't want this out yet because I haven't been reelected yet, so let's not.
Oh, I don't like the way my chin looked in that shot. Yeah, don't put that video out there.
Yeah, and then obviously the key one to that one is Officer Hendricks freezing in the hallway. That video was specifically held that because if you put everything out in order, that video would have been out within just a few weeks after they started releasing the video. But it wasn't. It was pushed back till after the election. And several other key pieces of information too. Sean O'Donnell, when he shot the three discharge shots and various things like that. Paddock's body being moved.
Yeah,
I was
huge.
Was the only person that
we talked about that.
I was out there on a huge limb saying that his body was moved and all this other stuff, and the crime scene had been this and that, and everybody's like, what makes you think his body was moved? And I'm like, well, I'm colorblind, believe it or not, and that's how I found out. And so they're like, what? And no, it took a year before that came out.
Yeah.
But these are things that when you watch it from this angle and you look at it and you go, wow, this is crazy that this could actually happen. The leaked images, and we know who took the leaking images and all these different things, but Sheriff Lombardo can't figure it out. I can figure it out in 10 minutes, but Sheriff Lombardo can't figure it out over 2 years later. This is crazy.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. So we'll see how it works.
Well, and what is the plan as of right now, Ram, as far as release, getting this out there, things like that? Are you looking at? I mean,
it's a good question. We're kind of like, we want to get the film out there, but we also, we had a whole plan. We had our plan was, play those festivals in April, play them, and what that also allows you to do is kind of watch the film with an audience and kind of like maybe make a couple of adjustments. There's a lot to be gained by watching films with audiences before you release them. And so, but our plan kind of went by, so frankly, we're kind of like the rest of the world. We're just kind of going, waiting to see what happens with this what's wonderful COVID-19 horse crap. And then we're going to kind of like go from there, But, the film did play online at Cleveland International, for people in the Ohio area, who were able to see it at Cleveland, and it's going to be playing at AM Docks, which is a really good festival in Palm Springs in September. Okay. Again, AM Docks is supposed to be in April, in late March, April, and we're going to play there, and again, but it got moved. So a lot of these places, we've gotten into a lot of places and stuff, so the dates are shifting by month. But even that is a little uncertain because you're just not sure what's gonna, when are people actually going to be able to go into a room with 300 people again?
Yeah, and it's hard whenever you have registered for festivals because you've basically put out a non-compete, and said that like you're not going to do a wide release before this festival happens,
right?
And it really does kind of stymie you in some ways and hinder you in some ways, but at the same time pop you up on different radars in other ways.
We ended up with the Forbes, getting Forbes, wrote a glowing article, launched our trailer. That probably wouldn't have happened. I mean, I think that happened because they're writing something about the online section of the Cleveland International.
Hey, so I'm here to tell you that popped up in my feed before I saw it from you or Mike Turber.
Yeah.
Because I follow Forbes. So, like, in my RSS feed, I was like, ooh, yeah, look at that. All right. Way to go.
and I was really happy. I was
proud moments.
Rolled with that. I mean, that they got some guts. I kept thinking this is going to be too controversial for them, but they played it.
Hey.
And they rolled with it. That was cool.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well.
Hello?
Yeah, there's some interesting developments, too, with Jim Murren leaving MGM Properties and going to work for Governor Sisaquack and whatnot for his coronavirus, getting Nevada back on their feet. Now, I applaud that. And if Jim can do that and help Nevada get back on their feet business-wise, and that's a good thing, then that's a good thing. The odd thing is the timing of it. These are kind of things that won't fit in the film, so to speak. But when you think about it, okay, here's the guy that apparently sold a bunch of his stock just before, the shooting. Okay, it probably had really nothing to do with it, but it does make you think for a second. And that makes you pause and go, wait a second. And then the other actions that he did. And then he started selling off the MGM properties right towards the end of last year. And, to the tunes of billions and billions of dollars. We're not talking about hundreds of millions. We're talking about billions of dollars of money was fed back into MGM to give it a much better cash flow situation. And here's Jim Murren, who leaves MGM right after they're in a huge cash positive situation. And their stock obviously went up and what have you. I'm sure he made a pretty penny on that.
Well,
to take a non-paying job for Governor Sisaquack. And, that's Bram's phrase. I'm stealing one of his now. Add
to that,
so over there.
Add to that the lawsuit to make sure that victims couldn't come back and sue the MGM.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll give Sisaquack credit for one thing. I do think he handled the Corona-19 thing more responsibly than the jackass mayor Carolyn Goodman. But
luckily Goodman's not the governor, right?
What's that?
I said, luckily Goodman is not the governor, because I have a problem with people named Goodman for some reason. I don't know here lately, but like Carolyn Goodman definitely should not be a person that would ever run for governor. That her in that position would be terrible, because that's too much fun.
Well, she shouldn't even be mayor. I mean, this is a woman who had zero political experience. She was married to the mayor, Oscar Goodman, and so sure, she can be mayor. I mean. By the way, I mean, I don't know what but so anyway, even that was beyond her, what she really should have been, it's like, I don't know. I mean, do you really just usually you'd be on the county commission, like kissing butts and working your way up to being the mayor, right?
Yeah. There'd be a little bit of a chain of trying to get your way up there.
But I thought she got what she deserved. I mean, I thought he really, he just exposed her as what she really is, which is somebody who only thinks about money and is a generalist and someone who has no real plan, but just wants to throw her pom-poms in the air and go, money, 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 money. I don't care if there's 40 million tourists taking that COVID all over the country, and it ends the U.S. Get the registers ringing, make money, because I'm the mayor and I don't have any real skills and I don't have any solutions, but cash.
Well, and Ramsey, it's like you and I were saying earlier, there is one thing to being capitalist.
Right.
And there is another thing to being a part of a fully rigged system that is rigged to your advantage and that purposefully takes advantage of people.
And that's what the gambling industry mostly is.
Yeah, there's things that money should be able to buy, and there's things that money shouldn't be able to buy.
Right.
And obviously, a public office, a public trust, any position of that nature is not something that you should be able to buy your way into.
That's right. And guys, the fact that both of y'all, writer, director Ram Denison, producer Mike Turber, I mean, like you were right there hand in hand with him the whole way. Like Ram was saying at the beginning of the show. Kudos to you for getting the exclusive with Eric Paddock, the brother of Steven Paddock, and really being able to get behind the scenes of the mentality of what was going on. I personally cannot wait to see the documentary. I know it'll be a little while before it is officially out because of all this right now, Ram, but tell people where they can go to find out more about it, where they can go to
follow our Facebook page, Money Machine, to file. We'll be posting updates about the film on our, just look up Money Machine on Facebook and follow us there, and that's how you can find the film.
Exactly.
Fantastic. And, guys, thank you all so much. Mike, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks for calling in, Mike. That was a nice little, improv. I thought that was, good. I'm glad you did call in. As I saw him things twisted and turned in interesting directions.
As I saw him kind of chiming in on the conversation on Facebook, I was like, you should totally just call me right now.
He did. He sent me a message saying, call me now.
So, I was like, yeah, sure. Yeah, have Mike call. Yeah, sure. What the hell? Let's have a talk.
Well,
the last thing I want to say is that, on this film, my previous film, What Happened in Vegas, I had a completely different philosophy, which is I hired people who were people who were only camera people or people who were only this or that, and were really professional at that one thing that they did. But they also were kind of scared to really go into Vegas and kind of do the kind of investigative journalism that we were able to do on this film. And so on this film, I kind of, I recognize the limitations of that on What Happened in Vegas, and I kind of flipped the script on this one, and kind of what I did instead is I don't know how else to put it, but I kind of rounded up a couple of rowdy pirates who didn't give a kind of turned them loose, and Mike is one of those rowdy pirates who is just always game for doing whatever. He is
always ready to be in the mix. We were really
able to get, and so I think when you're making an independent film, there's a real magic at getting people who were fearless, and who will just do whatever to get things done, and sometimes you get some very interesting text messages, and you're like, oh God, Mike, did you really do that? Get the hell out of Vegas. Get on
the road. Yeah, we did have a few of those. I had to leave Vegas a little quicker than normal.
I'm not kidding you. How many times did I say that? I'm like, Mike, I didn't tell you. What the hell did you do that? Get out of town. They're going to...
Yeah, neither one of us will be able to step foot back in there again. And I even wonder myself sometimes, with the things I popped up with in searches, it's how long before I start getting the treatment at the front desk, Yeah.
Well, Ramsey would give me a task, and he would say, "Do you think you can do this or that or whatever?" And I wouldn't bat an eye. I just we need it for the film. Boom! I'm going to go get it. I'm not going to, I'm going to make certain that we don't get in trouble after the fact. But at least if anyone's going to get in trouble, I'll get in trouble while I'm doing it. But hey, I can do this and get away. That's what I'm going to do, so we can get this footage. And that's what I did. Ramsey, thank you for the compliments. I appreciate that. That means the world to me.
Guys, thank you to both of y'all.
And there was many times where I asked, I'm like, hey, Mike, could you get this, could you film this shot at, or whatever? And then, and he'd be like, yeah. And he'd get it. He'd send me a little screen grab. And so I'd be like, oh, great, perfect. And then an hour would go by, and then he'd be like, oh, shit, I just did this. And I was like, well, why did you do that? I didn't tell you to do that. He was like, well, I don't know, but I
couldn't not
get the hell out of town.
I was right there. I could not do it.
I said, dude, how far are you from the 15? Get on the 15 and get the hell out of Vegas.
That literally happened. The last time I was there, I had to leave quickly. I was so stupid. I can't say the story yet, but I was looking at the thing that I just done, not realizing that I was the one that caused this problem, and went, wow, there's some guy doing this and that. He's trying to repair something.
Y'all sound like some of my Vegas stories, except y'all are doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's funny.
Most of mine are like, no, don't do that. You'll get us kicked out of Vegas.
We'll have to have a director's producer cut or something. We'll splice in some of these extra stories of how we were able to get this shit done.
I still kind of sit there and go, I can't believe got that. You know, like some of the stuff. And like I said, it never would have happened without if I had that same
straight-laced
approach that I had in the first film of getting people who are only a camera or only this or only that. You know, it's like you need like whatever you get with their level of expertise in that one field, you lose with like the improvisational energy of it and the kind of like there's something about like there's something dangerous about a film that like has dangerous people involved in it.
Absolutely.
You know? I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah, no, that's kind of there is no other way to put it, Ram, than a dangerous film having dangerous people behind it. Because it's so important. Like literally, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I've changed one of the taglines on our social media to weaponizing minds since 2015. Because that's our job. That's our job. Not only as hosts of this show and investigative journalists like Mike Turber and documentary filmmakers like Ram Denison, that is our job, is to keep our mental tool honed. Our job is to, like with a rapier, just rip things apart if we have to, because the evidence is not there. It is to treat our mind like a weapon and a tool to be able to solve the problem, to be able to get behind the depth of the issue, and to really get to the root of it. So I have no problem saying that as a mission statement of this show, the fact that we are weaponizing minds. We want people to think in that weaponized way.
But one thing we got to remember is that there are 59 lives that were lost. We had the 58 lost that night, one additional that was lost after that, and a no-named person who did the shooting. We don't really count him in that at all. But we have to remember that the number of people that were injured, I've got so many. There's people that are watching this or listening to this right now who are friends of mine, who are survivors, who I talk to daily, literally every single day. My life has completely changed myself since this began, and I wasn't
And
there.
these people want the truth. What they really want is the truth.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yep.
And so that's what Mike and I tried to give them, is like the real truth, like whether it's pretty or not, you know? And so that was really a big part of it. I mean, if you talk to those people, that's what they're going to tell you. Like, they're going to say, we don't have answers for so many things, and we just want those answers.
Yeah.
You know?
And that was the main driving force behind, me doing what I did. Is I knew the next morning I received a phone call by someone who basically said, hey, go do what you do. And, all right, that's what I did. And so in the end, I have to feel comfortable about getting the answers for people that otherwise they wouldn't have, and trying to straighten out some of the stories that were coming out that were obviously, here or there or way off the mark or what have you. And you take a lot of heat for that, but you still trudge through it all, and you're still here in the end, and you're still trying to get the truth out to people. Yeah. That's why I admire Ram for doing this. It's a lot of personal sacrifice you have to go through to get this type of a story told. And he's done it. I've done it. And when it comes out, people will see what happened in Vegas, and they will see it was the money machine. Just putting money in the drawer was all they cared about.
Yeah.
Right. And I just want to say one last thing. I remember when I first met Mike, like, anybody who knows Mike knows this is true. Like, Mike was like, hey, I've got 1,000 bagels in my trailer. Do you want a bag? I was like, well, why do you have 1,000 bags? He's like, well, I don't know. What are you going to do with 1,000? I don't know. And so Mike is like that guy who just like always, like every time I saw Mike, he had like some weird, like how does anybody even get 1,000 bagels? And so the first couple of times I met Mike, he was the guy who always had like random weird stuff in his truck. And you're like,
Ramsey would run out his door with his camera, his GoPro, and it was like, what's in Mike's truck today?
Well, Christopher, I mean, seriously, like, you ever, like, how would you get 1,000 bagels, and what would you do with them?
Yeah, where do you even come up with 1,000 bagels? How does that happen?
So that was my first experience with Mike.
Like, hey, guess what? I got a bag of muffin tops last night. Where the hell did you get a bag of muffin tops? And what the hell happened to the bottoms?
Yeah. That was always interesting, too. I was like, how the hell does this guy, like, what's the story? And I don't remember what the plan was with those bagels or what happened with them, but anyway, it was interesting.
I had that, and then I had 100 dozen donuts. So it was 1,200 donuts that I actually took to the 6-month anniversary.
Damn.
I remember that, too, yeah.
100 dozen donuts.
So...
People were impressed when I showed up with a 5-gallon bucket of donuts.
Who wanted something a little more sweet?
Yeah,
we got 1,000. We
1,000
random ass
dozen donuts
packaged in plastic bag.
You know where most of them I actually gave them to a lot of the homeless people that were around there. I just went around from it was like 10 o'clock at night till 4 o'clock in the morning. Just giving, I would give them like bags of like 50 donuts, and granted, they probably don't have the best dental care to begin with, and I was probably not doing that much good for them. But hey, they loved it, and I was like, here you go.
I have missed you, Mike. I'm so glad you called in.
Right.
Well, we all ought to do Vegas together one time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, guys,
I mean, just to see what's in Mike's truck, there's nothing else. I mean, what contraption will Mike have with like 100 like Pee Wee Herman toys and like what kind of crap can Mike
like come up with? What certificates of authenticity? No. Before we let you guys go, number one, thank y'all so much for the work that y'all have done on this show. I mean, we talk, we fool around like old friends because we've all been in this game for a little while, and we've had more than a few foolish conversations, but the topic is more than serious. The documentary Money Machine, I cannot wait to see in its entirety. Ram, please let everybody know where they can go to keep up once again with the latest from Money Machine, and Mike, let everybody know Facebook, where they can go to check out the latest from 5x5 News.
Yes, Money Machine. Just go to Facebook, just look up Money Machine and follow and like our page, and we'll keep you updated. And Mike, you can give the 5x5 because I don't want to put the wrong.
Yeah, you can either Google 5x5 News, or primarily most of the stuff I do with 5x5 News is on YouTube. I will be relaunching the website, which is the 5x5news.com website will be relaunched in about probably 3 weeks.
Okay.
It's there sitting kind of dormant right now, but that's going to have the footage that I can't put on YouTube because my channel's been shut down a couple of times.
Yep.
And you're going to see the stuff the story exactly as I intended to say it, with no holes barred, and screw YouTube. And you'll get it right from the horse's mouth. Plus, we'll do some live shows and stuff like that.
Good.
And I'm always talking with survivors and stuff. So, Chris, greatly appreciate you helping us get the word out.
Hey,
that means a lot.
Anytime, all the time, man. It's all about getting this out there.
And it was fun, too. I mean, that was the other thing I want to say is, like, it's actually fun, Like, it was fun to get out here and talk with you guys. It's like,
Thank you.
So it was just, it was just a fun, loose, funny-ass, weird conversation.
Well, I mean, there's so much that goes into it. We're all passionate people living passionate lives, Ram. Mike with 5x5, me with this and HC Universal Network, you with your films, and the investigative work you do behind those. And for me, it's really about telling passionate people's passionate stories, man. And the fact that you guys are out there digging for the truth on this is beautiful to me. It's one of the most beautiful things in the world that y'all are not just buying the slipshot investigation that was done to get business back up and normal. You are actively trying to help the victims, help them get some closure, help get to the truth behind this and what happened. Like, despite the motives of Steven Paddock, Because, I mean, no offense, I'm sorry to the Paddock family. I'm sorry to his loved ones and everything else. He is a dead man with no manifesto. We will never actively know the true, real motivations. We can know from people like Eric, who knew him best. You know, I would venture a guess that if something were to happen to me, gentlemen, you could definitely go to my brother, Randy Jordan.
Yeah.
And probably find out the deepest of the deep about me, because we sit out on his patio and we drink scotch and we smoke cigars and we talk about life and love and everything. He's my brother. Oh, the only person that knows more about me than that is my wife and God.
Right.
You know, and that's
Give me time. I'll know more.
Oh yeah. Oh, we'll get there. And you know, it's
Mike knows what kind of lunchbox you had in the second grade.
I was broke, bro. I had no lunchbox. I was I was on the school lunch system, my man.
On the way to school. What are you talking about?
I was eating rats on the way to school. No, but it's one of those, you know. The work that you guys are doing, the boots on the ground is so fantastic. It's great. You're always welcome.
You know, at the end of your life, do you want to have a life where you watched, you know, a bunch of TV, or do you want to have a life where you've actually made things, you know, and done things, and and that's how I view it. It's you know, I mean, you know, do you at the end of your life, do you want to have things that you've actually put some things out into the world that are gonna stick around for a while?
That's right.
You know,
that's right. Like I said, you guys, along with Dr. John Hall, were very much a moving catalyst of this show. In the fact of, wow, I made a ripple that could become a wave. And I thank you guys for that, and that's why you will always have a home and a platform here for anything that you're doing, because it's really made a difference in my life and in the life of my audience. So thank you guys for everything that y'all do.
Thank you.
Please do hold the line while you're online checking out all the great work of Ram Denison. Money Machine coming out soon. Check out the great Forbes article written about that. Make sure to stop on by 5x5 News. You can check that out on dudesandbeer.com/video. That is where all of our guests' YouTube channels are, things like that. You can keep track of all the great stuff from Mike Turber, other people, Ram Denison, all kinds of good stuff. Make sure to stop on by the Knowledge Vault as well on Dudes and Beer. We have all the episodes available there. Wow, it doesn't seem like there's literally 10 days of audio, but there is. So stop on by, check it out. HC Universal Network is our home. Until next time, everybody, if you can't be good at it.
Thanks for listening to
We'll
this
talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Dudes and Beer Podcast. To listen to our audio streams or chat with us live, download the official Dudes and Beer app for Android and iDevices, available on Google Play and iTunes markets. For more episodes, content, and information, visit us online at dudesandbeer.com. You can also find our episodes on Breach.tv, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast service. Dudes and Beer is a proud member of the HC Universal Network family of podcasts. For more about our sponsors and other podcasts on this network, visit hcuniversalnetwork.com. Thanks for listening, everybody, and until next time, drink responsibly.